lot of ways, and not just physically strong, but strong in the things that I've gone through in my life, and letting go of stories and things, descriptions about my body that I've internalized from other people, even from a really young age, getting rid of them, letting them go. So a strength in that. I would say there's also a lot of humor involved with my body. Like recently I've been doing some work around strengthening my core muscles, which I'm not trying to speak in that weird lingo, but because I have like I struggle with my mobility right now. And so I've been finding ways to kind of work my abs, and I don't want it to be this weird like gym bro situation. I really want to reclaim that as like my abs are part of my body and part of a relationship. And so as I've been able to like feel my abs working more, I've been like, yeah, go. And then I've been telling these funny stories to my friends about how like my abs are so strong right now, I could totally crunch walnuts with them. And then I go, ugh, so I just make these like really funny jokes or stories about my different parts of my body in a really beautiful way, and reclaiming that kind of fun relationship. Because I think I've grown up mostly with like, you're going to be fat, and, your body's not okay. And having experiences of abuse from a really young age, I want to reclaim that relationship with myself. I think the last thing I would say would be, in reclaiming stories about my body. One of the first ones I did was, I had seen, for a long time, I didn't wear any shirts or anything that showed my arms, especially my upper arms. And so I graduated from college, and I had a picture with a friend where I, for the first time in a long time, wore a dress that didn't have sleeves. And I could see like the fat rolls in my arm, like you can see them right now. And I was just really upset by it and disgusted by it. And I was like, wait, I'm doing this body sovereignty work. Like, how can I rethink that thought in my mind? And so I decided to use my camera on my phone, and I took photos of my fat rolls. And there was one of my fat rolls on my arm in particular. I'm going to open so you can see them. And I thought of them as being these beautiful, succulent, soft cinnamon rolls. And so I had this whole story about these cinnamon. So these are my cinnamon rolls. Welcome to my cinnamon rolls. They're fat and juicy and beautiful. And it's really just kind of helped me feel different ways about my body. And there's also parts of my body that I still struggle with. But I just wanted to kind of offer that as like, this is an ongoing relationship. And I really just want to get rid of and do away with the old stories that really don't have anything to do with actually who I am. So anyways, that's all I have to say about that. And I want to give space for other folks to talk.
Thank you so much, Shilo. That was an entire story. I love it so much. Okay, and also, sorry, I had to interrupt you a little bit to start the recording, which I said so many times I'm going to record, and then I took me forever to actually record. So for those of you who are watching online, I'm sorry. There wasn't that much that you missed. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's see. How about Yandi? Would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Whenever I'm describing my body, I like to say my aesthetic is clown dyke, because I love clowns. I love to be colorful. It's very important for me to be like bright and like cheery and just loud, kind of. Something else that's really important to me also is to say that I am fat. Like, I am a fat person. I think that's really important, because whenever you say that, it makes people uncomfortable. They want to very quickly be like, no, you're not, but for me, it's important to be like, well, I am. Like, what it is a physical description of my body, and that's fine. Like, I really try to take my body as not good or bad ever. It just is. And it is always changing. And my favorite thing about my body is that it's constantly trying to keep me alive. And it's always working for me and working with me, even when I can't do it. my body is doing it. And so I just really try to make it a point to just say it like it is. There's no sugarcoating it, because there's nothing wrong with it. And also, you know, that experience coupled with being Black is it can be very odd. I grew up in a predominantly white, I grew up in a town called White Settlement. I mean, that's the name of the town. Okay. So I mean, what else is there to say? So a lot of the time growing up, I was constantly comparing myself to my white friends. Our bodies are going to be different anyway, just on the basis of European bodies in general. And just thinking about that and always trying to obtain this goal that is just not realistic constantly all the time, just got to a point where you can't do it anymore. And why do you want to? You know, there's nothing there for me, and I can't be that, and that's fine. I don't have to be. Like, I'm me. I like my body. And another aspect of that that's kind of odd is my facial hair. I was finally diagnosed with PCOS in December, I think. And that is something that is there's so much misinformation around it because of fat phobia. Like, for so long, I was told that I just need to lose weight. That's it, just lose weight. And I don't know, all of that coupled together is it's made for a very interesting experience. But I am finally at a place in my life, I'm about to be 30 years old, and I'm genuinely comfortable and happy, like, in my body and what it does for me. And I hope that like Shilo and, you know, just being yourself does that for other people too, you know, like, being comfortable in yourself shows other people that they can do it too. And that's what's really important to me.
Wow. Thank you so much, Yandi. Wren, would you like to go next?
Yes. Sorry. So for me, similarly to other folks, one of the first things that I tend to offer about myself is that I am a fat person. Mostly because it is because as I get older, it becomes increasingly more relevant to my identity. As I get older and I realize more about how being fat affects my life compared to folks who I'm close with or are in community with that are thin. And the other thing that I always kind of offer to people is that, and that's kind of one of the main thing, is that I am disabled. I think as I've gotten, currently have undiagnosed EDS and what I suspect to be undiagnosed chronic fatigue syndrome, on top of being diabetic. And I think that in conjunction with being fat, I've dealt with a lot of medical ableism from doctors and people being like, oh, well, maybe if you just lose some weight. When I was recently I switched PCPs and I had multiple doctors in a row after telling them all of the symptoms that I've been experiencing, like fainting spells and all over muscle spasms and being constantly in excruciating pain all the time and being incapable of staying awake for more, sometimes being incapable of staying for more, even more than 2 minutes at a time. They'd be like, yeah, okay. So you're fat then, that's your problem. Have you tried going to the gym? And I'm like, no. And then it also kind of being disabled heavily impacts my relationships with other people and outside of a medical setting, just because I can't work because of my disabilities. And for example, with housemates, I can't always keep things as clean as other folks might like it to be because I can't physically stand long enough to deep clean the stove every time I use it, or wash a sink full of dishes every time I'm in the kitchen, stuff like that. And it sometimes I think can lead to a little bit of I don't want to say tension, but friction, I guess, especially because my ability is very fluid from day to day. So some days they'll see me up and around walking outside of my bed, or like they'll like see me go out to do an errand, and they're like, oh, but you were fine yesterday, but why aren't you fine today? And I'm like, chronic illness, baby. And then there was one more thing I wanted to specifically talk about, but I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, the other thing that I think I always kind of put forth when like I talk about, like I describe my body, is my transness. Um, because even though a lot of the time, because of my disabilities, I don't necessarily always have the energy to make an effort to dress in like a visibly gender non-conforming way, or like a way that like might visually flag to people that I'm a transgender, if you will. I still find that regardless of my presentation, it's a very important part of me, and it's something that like I've had to really struggle with a lot and really kind of figure it out, and figure out how I wanted to describe myself and how I wanted to identify myself, and like figuring out how to navigate like being trans in a body that most people won't even recognize as being trans. Because, for example, I don't bind, I can't. It causes me breathing issues. I don't like, I don't always like to dress in like traditionally masculine clothes. I like frequently like to wear like just like a t-shirt and a skirt or a dress because it's easy for me to put on and take off. And in my experience, I've had a much easier time finding, albeit ugly, dresses and skirts in my size rather than pants, because just because like most stores near me don't carry clothes in my size. So I have to order online, and you can't really try it before you buy it. So it's just like crossing my fingers and hoping for the best. And the fact that my wife is also a medium fat, like brown skin, like lighter skin, but like brown skinned Afro-Latina trans woman, like the way that we look when we walk around, like people will like it's always important for me to kind of like, even if I'm not dressed masculinely, kind of like project myself in like almost a masculine way, I guess, to like let people know that my wife is not somebody who is unprotected and like a target, which is hard because she is a trans woman. So there's only so much I can do, but like making sure that like I present myself in a way towards other people as like her protector is something that is so important to me, to make sure that she feels safe when we're out in public, that other people know not to mess with her when we're out in public, things like that. Basically, I love my wife very much.
I love that so much. Everyone's expanded on this so much. Like I started out with like maybe 10 questions, and now I have 30, thanks to all of the wonderful things you've added to the description of your body, which I'm sure comes from having to, explain every part of yourself to yourself all the time. So I think, okay, so the next question I'd like to ask is, inspired by something I think everyone's talked on a little bit. So everyone has an intersecting identity of, obviously queerness and being BIPOC, and then fatness, disability, indigenousness. Like there's so many things. How do you feel that your specific intersection of where your body is, what it is, the accumulation of those identities, where do you feel the most safe, the most at home with your body, where you don't maybe have to dress a certain way or carry yourself a certain way, excuse the way that you do or don't do things? Where do you find that home and comfort? I'm looking at, I think Wren. Let's go for Wren.
Okay. For me, I think that the place where I feel most at home in my body is kind of how I'm dressed now. Just like a t-shirt, some pajama pants, or like I have this really, really, really beautiful, like comfy pink nightgown. It's like I call it my granny gown because it's like looks almost like in the style of one that you would see like an older grandmother wearing. I like to consider myself a grandmother in the body of a 24-year-old, just because I have a very like not quite motherly more like grandmotherly nature about me. So just like kind of like embodying that, like people tend to like make jokes at me a lot or like make comments to me about my disability and about like my fatness and like how like the problems that I have. It's like, oh, you are, it's not like you're an old person, like really kind of feeding into like a very like ageist like ideas about disability and how like only like quote old people can have like some of the problems that I'm having. So I thought like if people are gonna tell me that like, I can't have these problems because I'm old, it's like, well, spiritually I'm a grandma, so you're wrong. And just kind of like, I don't know. Sorry, kind of lost plot there. Maybe I got distracted. Anyways, just kind of like letting myself be myself without feeling like I have to perform something. But like, where was I? Oh God, I'm having a minute. Okay, can you come back to me? I had something, but then I lost it and I had to find it again.
Yeah, no problem. Just
Thank
throw your
you.
hand up when you remember it.
Got it.
Shilo, why don't you go next? Where do you feel at home in your body?
Yeah, I think that's like again, another, I think my initial reaction was, I just like to be really honest with people that like, yeah, I mean, I always have that interaction. I would say, so I wrote down a couple notes. I'm one of those people, or else I will completely lose my train of thought. I would say I don't know if I'm ever really at home in my body, to be honest. I would also say that it depends on my mood and my circumstance or where I'm at. I would say, again, none of this is ever really linear. So you'll have to just deal with that if you have a linear brain. I think I feel very, very home with my dog, Journey. She, I don't know, she's very obviously accepting of who I am. She's a dog. She loves me. So that feels really good and healing. I think that there are friends that I feel really safe with. I have a really, I'm very, very lucky to have a lot of friends who I love and feel really good around. There are certain aspects that I still struggle with around my disability, and disabilities and how my body is, that sometimes is a little bit difficult for me. Everyone is very loving. It's my internal stuff. And I'm learning how to be more open with my friends and asking for help when I need it. I think I grew up as kind of like, you can do it on your own, you don't need help, that kind of thing. And so I'm learning to be open to that, because like if someone needed help, I would help them. Like I wouldn't judge them about it. So how do I kind of have that thinking for myself about the people around me who are also very loving and not judging me? I think I feel pretty at home in Native community. And that's one thing I've really, really missed during the pandemic, is having access to ceremony and gatherings and powwows and things like that, because I feel very at home, especially around being a fat person. There's lots of fat Native people. And I think there are times also that some of the people in my life have surprised me by how loving they are and thoughtful they are. Not because I think they're terrible people, but just because I think I'm just always waiting for that microaggression. I'm waiting for that judgment, because that's what I feel a lot from society. But the people who are actually in my life and very loving are not like that. Some people aren't as aware of certain aspects of the experiences that I have in my life because they don't have that experience, but they're always open to learning about it. I would say one of the things that popped in my head is I've definitely been struggling with chronic illness, and there's something going on with my immune system. And of course, when it comes to your immune system, like it takes forever to figure out autoimmune diseases and things like that. And so I've been dealing a lot with my muscles, especially my leg muscles, not quite working properly because of a lot of inflammation. So stiffness, and it's hard to move when you feel horrible and you're in a lot of pain, but you need to move to feel a little bit better. So it's this, people with chronic illness will know what I mean. And so I went to a holiday party this year, a really good friend of mine and one of my queer families in Portland. And it was, I had been sick with cellulitis. And so my body was even less mobile than usual, but I was like, come hell or high water, was not going to miss this party. And so I ended up going, and I was in a lot of pain. And then I left. And as I was leaving, I had to walk down just a few stairs. But I had been sitting for a while, and I didn't realize how crappy I felt. And when I was going down the stairs, I saw 3 of my friends were going with me. And I was like, I don't need 3 people to help me. But then I ended up having a moment where I started to have a panic attack. So one of my friends kind of held on to my hand. One of the other friends grabbed my keys and pulled my car around. And then the other friend went and got a chair so I could sit on a chair in the middle of the sidewalk. And it was a really embarrassing moment for me. It was like, I don't want to be that way in front of my friends, but they were so loving, and obviously no one was judging me. And I think they appreciated that I asked for help when I needed to. But anyway, I just appreciated how that worked out well, and we could be a team together. And I was able to be, I guess, vulnerable. I can be vulnerable in some ways about my stories and about fatness, but I think when it comes to like the chronic illness and disability things that are fairly new, it's like the last 5 years of my life, it's a little bit harder to be vulnerable. But I think I'm probably way off the topic, but I think that's me learning how to be at home in different situations that aren't when my dog can't be there or when I'm out in public. Like, how do I still be at home? So it's still a learning process, but our society isn't very like loving, or it's very ableist, right? There's hardly any benches or chairs anywhere to rest. I wanted to get a walker that you can sit on, but I don't think they make one wide enough for my hips. So I'm still trying to figure that out. So it's just frustrating. And those things are very, very expensive. Like there's a tax, there's like a disability tax, there's a fat tax, there's oh, hey. I see you, Gary. There's a tax for, BIPOC folks, tax for femmes, like, you know what I mean? It just becomes very expensive anyways to like work around all these things. But yeah, I just love, I think the pandemic has forced me to have to deal with some things as well, in myself. So anyway, I don't know. I think I kind of went off topic again, but that's what I can say about that.
That's totally okay. That's honestly the format of everything I do. Wren, did you remember what you wanted to add?
Yes, I think the other thing that I wanted to talk about, I was kind of like, the wheels were spinning, but I wasn't going anywhere, is talking about like how living with a dissociative disorder has affected being at home in my body. So for me, living with a dissociative disorder as a like direct result of trauma that I faced as a younger person, it makes it hard for me to feel at home in my body, because frequently my body doesn't really feel like my own body. It can be hard to like navigate being in social situations because you never know how people are going to react. I don't know why my hand is still up. And it can be tough because people that you have told, or like people that you do tell, sometimes they don't always, even if they say it's fine, they don't always believe you. People will like the representation that a media representation that people have of dissociative disorders is horror films. People think it's like this scary thing. It's like, oh, it makes you evil. And it's like, oh, you're dangerous. And it's like, no, like I'm a muffin. I'm a potato. I'm not going to do anything. I'm a sleepy potato. All I do is lay in bed and sleep and like, I don't know, try out different little crafts to like occupy my hands since I can't work. Like, and it makes it really difficult, but I think the main thing that I think helps me feel at home in my body, I know I kind of mentioned it already, is my partner. Um, because they have we share a lot of identities that like allow them to really understand the like ways that I navigate my body and like my life. And they have, since the moment that I first met her, she has always, always, always been one of the only people to really meet me where I am and to offer that hand and say, hey, I'll walk with you. And because of that, I have learned so much about how to not only feel at home in my body, even though sometimes it's difficult, but how to love my body, because I want to see myself in my body the way that she sees it. Because she is always so like unabashedly like open about how much she loves me and how much she loves everything about me. And I like never really had that in my life before. So it makes me want to put the work in to really feel at home in my body, because I want to see what she's seeing, because clearly she's seeing something that I'm not, she's got eyes that I don't have. So I need to figure it out. She encourages me to grow and be a better person, and not on just to be a better person, but to be my best self. And she helps me to understand that sometimes, like, even if it doesn't feel like it, like, I'm always growing and I'm always getting better every day. And she helps the hard times, like when I am frustrated because I've had yet another appointment with a specialist to try and figure out what's wrong with me. And the doctor was just like, either tell me, oh, it's either that I need to lose weight or I should see a therapist. Or it's yet another situation where like one of my estranged family members tried to contact me and I didn't want to talk to them and I was stressed out about it. She's always like in my corner, holding me up. And she also allows me to be in her corner and hold her up and provide that same support for her. So I think just that, this is my wife. She is what really grounds me and helps me feel at home in my body.
Thank you so much. And before I call in Yandi, I want to refresh everyone's memory because we go out on so many beautiful tangents, asking with all these intersecting identities that we have that relate to our body, what are some spaces or people or anything that makes you feel at home in your body?
For me, I'm super big on fake it till you make it. So I try to pretend that everywhere is my home. And that's really just kind of how I navigate stuff. Any environment I go into, I'm like, everyone's here to see me. I think it's also because I'm an Aries. So I'm very much like all eyes on me at all times right now, everyone all the time. But also that helps me a lot. Really though, where I feel super at home is with my friends. Two of them are here right now, Jamie and Emily. I love you both so much. Thank you for coming to this. But I'm not super big on family, like blood family. I talk to my mom and my sibling, and that's pretty much it. And I really do believe family is who you make it. And my friends like are my family and they keep me sane. And it's even the littlest, tiniest things like using the correct pronouns and correcting people when they don't do it. Just those little things inspire me every day to like feel comfortable in my body and be happy with who I am. And I know that we all kind of bounce that off of each other all the time, which I'm very thankful for. I live with Emily and it's always really great because we have really good conversations all the time about a variety of things, but including our bodies. And, if either of us are having a bad body day, I always have someone that I can just go to and she just understands. And same thing with Jamie, like both of these people are just two examples of people in my life who like really bring me comfort, really help me feel better about myself, and kind of help me strive to continue to just kind of not really give a shit, honestly, what people think about me or my body. And that's how I feel home. I just pretend that the world revolves around me, and then it does. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yandi. Okay, so we just admitted, I think, our fourth panelist, who's Bambi. Let me double check and see if they're...
I'll be back.
Oh my goodness, yes, that's Bambi. Okay, so Bambi is also here. I'm going to go ahead and move to our next question, and they can answer that as well. Okay, so...
Hey guys.
So many wonderful things. Hi, Bambi. Okay, so Bambi's calling in. Bambi, how about we... Actually, I want to go back to the first question for you that we have. Bambi, how would you... also take this opportunity to introduce yourself to whatever amount you're comfortable, but how would you describe yourself, physically, your abilities, disabilities, anything like that? How do you describe yourself so that you're, you point out what's important to you or what people notice?
Yes. I was just thinking about this last night. I know you guys probably don't know me and aren't familiar with anything about me, but I'm 21. I have a lot of stuff going on with my health and my personal life, and I think for a long time I tried to repress my identity. But last night when I was looking over the questions, I started to realize, like, I'm Black before anything, but I'm also disabled at the same time. Like, I've never not been Black, and I was disabled in my creation. Like, I have a chromosomal mutation, so in my genetics, I'm disabled. Like, there's nothing else I can be other than that. The same way there's nothing else in my genetics I can do. Then, oh, hold on, you guys. My doctor is calling. Can I join back?
Yes, yeah, you're welcome back. Okay, thank you so much. All right, in the meanwhile, so excited Bambi was able to join us. Let's talk about, okay, there's so many things. Okay, how about representation? I know especially for the folks in here, there's such a variety again of these intersections. Who has either a time that they felt they were represented, whether it's in a workplace, in a movie, in a book, anything like that, so they saw themselves physically represented somewhere. Does anyone have an example of that? Shilo, yeah.
When I saw this question, I immediately thought of Rutherford Falls, which is like
Yeah.
And Jana, who's one of the co-stars, who is the co-star of that show, and who is Native and fat. And I was on Jana's podcast a couple of years ago. So when I saw that she was like co-starring in the show, I was like, what? And so I watched it, and I loved it because she's fat, but there's no conversations about it. Like, it's not in the, it's just, she is fat, and that's the dynamic. Like, no, there's no, she just exists in the world. Like, that universe accepts her like that, and she gets to have like a romance, and it's not like, ooh, and all this drama and everything about her body or anything. It's just great. So Rutherford Falls, I really love. And I think it was definitely the first time where I was like, here's this fat Indigenous person who is trying her best. And there's other things about her personality of that character that resonate with me, but I was like, I get to watch this like Native focused like show. And like the first couple episodes were really focused on the white dude, but then towards the end it really focuses on Native people, and it really uses the white guy as like kind of the problem and uses him as like to explain issues. And so I liked that kind of reversal, but she's a little bit awkward, and I don't know, I love that character. And I think that's like the first time in my life that I felt represented in several of my identities at one time. And just, I think it also made me realize how sad it is that that was the first time, and I'm like 46 years old. And I wrote her this long email about how much I loved the character and what she was doing. And also the lead, I guess they called a showrunner, is like, I think it's a Navajo woman, and who's also fat. And they're like, we're never going to be doing anything that's fat phobic. Like, we're not, like, this is, not going to be happening. And the thing is one of the producers or creators of it created like The Office, or helped create The Office, and like Parks and Rec. And those are full of fat phobia and homophobia and really problematic racist stuff. And so I was really worried about Rutherford Falls, but I found that it seemed to be pretty good in those respects ish. But anyways, that's what I can point out.
Thank you so much, Shilo. Sorry, Bambi, while you were gone, I had asked the panels another question. Please continue, explaining your body and everything.
Yes, ma'am. Or I didn't mean to say ma'am. Yes, Bella. So I had to get off of the call because, actually relating to what I was talking about, my doctor called, and so, like I said, this is like a concurrent experience that I've been through since I was born. That's why I said I identify as Black and disabled before anything, because as a Black disabled person, like, I had to get off the call because I've been trying to get help for my pain I'm experiencing after having my baby, and the things that it's done to my body health wise. But I think too much before that, I seen myself as Black and disabled, and like Skyla, is that your name, Skyla?
Shilo?
Shilo. Okay. Like Shilo was saying, there's like huge representation and normalization of fat phobia and racism, and it's so ingrained in society that it happens in interactions, and it's passable, or it's like a cultural norm, and it's really terrible. I haven't how I feel about it, because I know that was one of the questions. I really don't have any feelings about it. About being treated that way. Like, I have cancer, and because culturally and religiously, and also just my own opinion, I don't want to do chemo or the Western medicine approach. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. And if I do need it, I do like extensive research on it. I make sure that it aligns with what my body needs. And for some reason, that's seen as a weapon to doctors. They see that as a threat. So, and not just doctors, I mean, anybody in position, anybody that's not an oppressed or marginalized person, they would see it as a threat or some sort of confusion. But I'm sure anybody here that's a person of color, that's disabled, that's a part of a marginalized community knows there's not really much feeling behind it. Like, it's just a part of who you are. Because anytime I have any feelings about it or I express them, usually they're completely invalidated. So I've just gotten to the point where it's not a way that I feel about my identity. I feel about the way my identity is perceived, but about myself, I just try to accept it.
Thank you so much, Bambi. The other question that we were going around, I think I'll call on Yandi next, is have you ever seen yourself represented, in a movie, in a show, in a book, anything like that?
Honestly, whenever I read this question, my first thought was, I think that I am overrepresented. As a small fat, as a light-skinned person,
That's the same way
I just don't really, I don't know. The example of like a fat person is someone who looks like me. that's like the example of like an acceptable fat body is like a size 18, 20. Can still, I have trouble finding clothes, but still like I can find them, when I go out. And then the example, obviously, of I'll say I'm not a woman, but of a Black woman would be someone who has my complexion, who has the same kind of hair that I have. So really, I just don't. I don't know. It's I'm over it. I mean, I just don't really think that there needs to be more representation of me. There needs to be more representation of larger fat people, and there needs to be more representation of dark-skinned Black women. I don't know if you guys saw that thing with Thandie Newton recently, and she was like crying about like, I'm sorry, Black women, that I am like the one that's chosen. I was just like, shut up. Like, how I just couldn't understand the tone deaf, like, coming from her. It was blowing my mind because it's like, that's not how you, I guess, not really take responsibility, but take responsibility for that. You advocate for these people. You give space
Right.
to people. You don't take roles from any of them, and that's what you did consistently. So what are you talking about? So that's how I feel about it. I'm good. Like, I'm ready to like move the spotlight somewhere that's actually benefiting and changing people's ideas about fat people and Black people.
Thank you for saying that. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was gonna I was actually gonna call on you, Bambi, but just so you know, I'm kind of calling on folks one by one, so that we don't confuse. There's auto captions going on. I know you can't see them right now because you're on the phone, but so other folks don't confuse. We're doing one by one. So yeah, if you could please answer, Bambi, how you see yourself represented, if it's a good representation or bad or doesn't exist.
That's what I was going to say. I appreciated them for saying that because I feel the same way. Like a lot of times I'll have white people come to me and I guess placate and pity me or ask me my thoughts and ideas on stuff, and then when I share them, they act like it's some revolutionary idea, like it's oh wow, I've never thought about that before, and then they ask like what they can do to help or anything like that, as in I guess relaying information or posting the things that I say and their thoughts on it. And I feel the same way. Like the spotlight needs to be moved away from me. Like I when I was a child, I used to be fat, but I had a pretty intense disordered eating and with my health. So I'm not anymore, but I am like I'm not a woman either, but I am a lighter skinned Black person with less kinky hair. Like it's overrepresented that my voice is the one that wants to be listened to, and there's millions and millions of fat Black non-men. There's millions and millions of Black people that don't have the spotlight, don't have that attention, that glamorization all the time, and they deserve to be heard and ask questions just as equally. So kind of the attention and the representation is a little annoying, to be honest, at times.
Thank you so much, Bambi. And then I'm going to go to Wren. And then after we hear from Wren, we're going to go on a 10-minute break. So Wren.
Definitely echoing what Yandi and Bambi said. Specifically just like, like I'm a mixed race, like a biracial person. Like there are plenty of people who look like me. I feel like there's plenty of that representation going on. They don't need more people that look like me, like it's not really anything. But like as for like some of the different like identities that like I exist in, I feel like maybe not for like someone that looks like me specifically, but like of folks of that identity in general, I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement. I mentioned earlier that I have a dissociative disorder, and a lot of like pretty much what information and like representation, if you will, exists for it is horror movies about how dissociative disorders are dangerous and they make you evil, and like those sort of like ideas tend to also be associated with other cluster B and cluster C personality disorders. So like people with like mental illnesses that are, or like neurodiversities that aren't considered like palatable, they tend to be demonized. And those, that especially stacks on when you think about whether or not somebody is like a dark-skinned, unambiguously Black person, like, or like as you like add on identities, these kind of perceptions very quickly stack on. And then when you look at like disabled representation, there is like, I feel like in general, like disability representation, especially when it comes to social media, tends to be very white. And like it can sometimes be hard to find. And like I really, like if I want to like I specifically try to only like follow and interact with and engage with like information and social media accounts about like things like disability and things like fatness from more marginalized people. So like I try to only like uplift and like share and like highlight darker skinned, unambiguously Black folks who might be larger bodied than me, or who might have disabilities that might impact their day-to-day life in ways that are more severe than mine are, or who might more be impacted by things like ableism. But like it can still be hard to even like find that sometimes, because so much of like mainstream representation for things like disability and things like fatness, and even to an extent things like queerness and transness, it tends to be white people. It tends to be like thin people or like smaller fat people. It tends to be lighter skinned people if they are non-white. So it can be frustrating to be able to like, because it's like, where's the flavor? Where's the variety? There isn't any sometimes, it feels like. But I know that they are there, and I just wish that there were more. I guess they were allowed to have the spotlight more. And so I try to, I guess, I don't want to say direct the spotlight, because that's a little too, I don't know if I like that phrasing, but I try my best to make sure that if I am in a space with somebody like that, that I am not like, no, like that's not for me, there are plenty of other people who deserve representation more than I do. So I feel like it's frustrating that representation does exist. It's just somebody that looks like me.
Thank you so much, Wren. We're going to go ahead and do a 10-minute break. So my clock says it's 4:09 right now. And I'm just going to round up to 4:10. And so that we'll reconvene at 4:20. I will go ahead and pause the recording. If you have any questions for the panelists, remember to message Gracie. She's a co-host, and she will get those questions to me and we'll ask the panelists. If you specifically want to identify yourself, let her know. If you need to say it out loud rather than having it read by someone else, let us know. But yeah, we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. We did it. Okay, hello, welcome back. All right, so we have one question that I'm going to rephrase, because not only our panelists, but all the folks who are attending are from across Turtle Island. So to make this a bit more helpful for folks in general, I'm going to rephrase it to ask, do you have any recommendations, tips, tricks, ideas, supports, and I already can feel Shilo, she's ready, specifically for QT-BIPOC folks, fat folks, disabled folks specifically, to understand how problematic it is, problematic healthcare services are, how to avoid shame, how to avoid Oh my, Bambi's also in there. And yeah, how to deal with that whole medical system. So I'm gonna let Bambi actually go first, because I know Shilo can talk for literally hours about this. So Bambi, go ahead.
I mean, I could too. But I'm gonna try to be as short and as least trauma dumping as possible. Um, I think that the societal norm, I mean, it's ingrained, like we were talking earlier about, in social media and in TV shows. It's ingrained so much that it's so normal for people to be racist and ableist, and that ends up creating a lot of guilt for disabled people, especially disabled Black people and disabled queer people, on needing help and wanting it. Like I go through that. I go through a lot of guilt because I have cancer, and personally, like I said, culturally, religiously, and just doing research on pharmaceutical and Western medicine and how much it has been weaponized against marginalized communities and how much experimenting has been done, and that the general basis of it has always been using Black people, using marginalized people, using people of color to experiment on, is a huge trigger for me. But I can't let that trauma stop me from getting something I want or something I need. And that's something I'm experiencing now with, like I was saying, with my pain. I've had cancer since I was 14, but because I don't do chemo, because I don't consent to them experimenting on me, because I don't I tell them to basically piss off when they try to get me to sign up for that, because I find it really disrespectful. Then they deny me my pain medicine. Then they try to say that I'm crazy or like I'm not capable of choosing what's best for my life, even though I have paperwork and everything there showing them the drugs that they're trying to get me to take are dangerous. And aside from any evidence I give them, my consent should matter to them, and it doesn't. It never does. Not about anybody Black.
Thank you so much, Bambi, for
But
sharing all that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
I interrupted you.
It's okay. It's something that I'm learning to get over. I think with anybody that's disabled and anybody that's Black, it's a lot of guilt where you go back and forth between feeling guilty and then also not caring that you feel guilty, and not wanting to feel guilty because it's something you deserve, and you're entitled to help as a person. But it's like when you're a part of a marginalized community, you're not a person to them. You're an object for them to use at their will. And then if you refuse to let them do you like that, then you're discarded and you're disposable.
Thank you so much. How about Yandi, specifically, maybe about the trans medical experience, that medical experience, all of those things. Do you have any tips or tricks or anything?
The only thing that I would really say is to advocate for yourself, period.
Yes.
My gynecologist, like I love her, sure, but she
Mine
is
too.
so fat phobic. Literally every single time I see her, the first thing she's saying is, "Have you lost weight? Why haven't you lost weight? When are you going to lose weight?" And it's like, that has literally nothing to do with what we're here to do. So let's just drop it. Same thing with, I'm so scared to even start to fathom the process of any kind of trans healthcare in the hellhole that is Texas. I haven't even stepped foot into that yet. But just advocate for yourself. Don't let any medical person, make you do something you don't want to do. Make sure you have everything down in writing. Make sure whenever they refuse to do things that is written down and dictated, and just keep a paper trail as much as you can. That's really it.
Thanks so much, Yandi. Yeah.
Protect yourself.
Wren, do you have anything to add?
I definitely want to 100% echo everything that Yandi and Bambi said. For me, what has worked, it hasn't been as successful now because of COVID, because a lot of doctors' offices, hospitals, clinics don't let you bring someone with you. But in the past, what has been really helpful for me is having somebody come with me. to kind of back me up, especially because for me, due to trauma reasons, if I am trying to advocate for myself and somebody that I see as like in quote authority figure, like a doctor, kind of tries to be like, no, that's not, then I tend to kind of like get really like triggered and kind of shut down and but let's kind of go along with whatever they say, which has led to a lot of
I'm the same way.
thank you. A lot of the delay in getting my conditions diagnosed and getting actual treatment for the conditions that I live with. But having somebody there with so specifically, I always tend to bring my wife because they live with me and they see me 24/7. And like even now at my telehealth appointments with doctors, if the doctors start trying to kind of like talk down to me or say something that's not right, my wife would literally lean over to the camera on my laptop and be like, actually, you're wrong. As someone who lives with him every day and sees like how this is affecting them, this is what I have observed. So what you're saying literally isn't right. And then they'll kind of like back off and like change what they were saying or like, oh, okay, yeah. And then they'll like, like kind of start to listen to me. But definitely, um, if you are in a situation where you can have somebody come with you, to be, if you will, a patient advocate, um, who can help with doing things like making sure everything is written down. And if a doctor is refusing something that you've asked them to do, like, for example, um, like if you would like to get a specific test run for something and the doctor tries to be like, no, I don't think you need that. Having them like be like, so you're saying that like, I would like it written on my chart that you are choosing not to have this procedure done. A lot of times just even asking them to like sometimes asking them to like write that down that they denied you something that you asked for can make them change their tune real quick. Just so just having somebody there to back you up on top of just making sure that you're like, I want everything written down. You need like everything needs to be written down, everything needs to be recorded. I need like there needs to be some sort of evidence because then if they don't listen to you, then you can prove that they didn't listen to you.
Thanks so much, Wren. And then, Bambi, did you want to add something before I ask Shilo to continue?
Yeah, I was just gonna say absolutely. When you said making sure they write everything down, I wanted to add on to that. I would go as to far to say is tell them to write it down and bring it to you. Like, tell them. I mean, you can. To be honest, I've lied to them, but it's really not a lie. That's like the self-gaslighting. I have a hard time remembering things, so they denied me simple iron pills the other day. And then when I asked them to write it in my chart, she kind of just ignored me, and because I was in pain, so she acted like I was delusional. So sometimes when you ask them or tell them to put it in your chart, they won't do it, especially if you are by yourself. So if you are by yourself, I know it's against hospital policies, but I try anytime I go to any doctor. As a marginalized person, I record the whole interaction. I'll either do it in my voice notes or on video, even though it's against most of their policies. They've done it before. They took in my phone, but it's just protecting yourself. Like what was said earlier, do everything possible to protect yourself.
Thank you so much for adding that, Bambi. Okay, Shilo, and I don't mean to like have Shilo as a favorite. I've just actually attended Shilo's like talk specifically about this, so I'm excited for what you can add, Shilo.
No, I think everyone echoed things I would say. I think, and I want to preface this with being white passing as an Indigenous person, of having that privilege, because I think that the way I handle providers makes it a lot easier for me to do the things that I do because of that. But I'm going to share with you a couple of things that I do. But I want it to be clear that there are some people who cannot do these things. I'm super fat, which means that I'm probably most of the time the fattest person in the room or in the space. And I'll oftentimes like public seating doesn't work for me. I literally didn't have jeans for 2 years because they literally had 2 kinds of jeans in my size, 2 kinds. And I didn't want those kinds. So it took me 2 fucking years to get fucking jeans. All right. So if you can buy clothes easily and get jeans, please don't, take it for granted, because yeah, you really are at the absolute mercy of these retailers who are terrible. Anyway, so when a doctor sees me, and also I think people from the public, I am like walking death for a lot of people. Like, oh my God, this person is so fat, they're going to die at any time. Like they have that term, morbid obesity, which I hate. And so I'm like one of those people that's actually living that label. And so it's incredibly, it's awful, right? For a lot of us, not even small fat folks. So there's no making people feel bad about that experience as well. What I needed to do for myself was I needed to think about because I get chronic cellulitis in my legs, that means that sometimes the infection is bad enough that I need to be hospitalized for usually 4 to 5 days. So I have to kind of deal with, people in hospitals. And what I realized one time was, this is so awful and I'm tired of the microaggressions. What skills, talents, or resources do I have available to me? What spaces of my life do I feel empowered? And I feel like I come back to queerness, specifically around the empowerment of I feel like I'm in most of my life kind of a boss, and I thought, how do I create that within these systems where I have to talk to medical providers? So I decided that I was going to top my primary care providers, because I'm a boss ass bitch and people do not talk back to me. So how can I embody that within these spaces? How can I do that? Could I get away with it and still get my needs met? And it is sometimes a fine line, because I don't want to push them so far that then I'm not getting services at all. Right. Or they're just writing me off. But I have a 4-page PDF full color document with photos, like what my expectations for care are, what my goals for my health and wellness are, and I define those goals. And they can be things like a better relationship with my parents or healing from trauma, whatever, what my skills, talents, and resources are, what my identities are, different things. I don't want you to ever use the O word with me. I want you to use the word fat, things like that. So this is kind of a guide for them to know how to work with me. And when I come into contact with a new provider, I show them that document. Well, I have them read it before they come see me. And then I go through it and I say, do you have any questions about these expectations? Because if you cannot work with me and not use the O word, all these, I don't want to talk about weight loss surgery. That's never going to be part of my health and wellness. Dieting is never going to be, I don't want you to talk about food, because
wavy and curly hair have like Mr. bottles that they just re-wet their hair with.
I have eating disorders. I don't, want you to talk to me about these things, right? And so, can you agree to this? And they oftentimes will have questions about it. They'll get really nervous. Well, there's certain things I feel like I need to say. Okay, well, let's talk about what that looks like in a scenario. And if we can't get along, then I'm not gonna mess around with that, right? And so I found that for the most part, this is super helpful for me. And that I can go back to this
curl creams and things. I don't really want to use heat on it anymore because I want to grow it out.
Distracting. If they can't meet those needs and basic expectations for me, then I'm not going to work with that person if I can. Sometimes it's a specialist and you have to kind of do what you can. I'm lucky that I live in a large area, like an area with a lot of doctors, so I can make some choices. But, I want them to know ahead of time, this is what I expect from you. You're not the be all and end all in my work that I'm doing on myself. You're not, there's lots of things that I'm doing for myself. So I think putting them into context. I think the other thing is sometimes I use cultural needs. Like, I'm not going to weight loss surgery is never going to be a choice for me because it goes against my cultural beliefs. My ancestors would not want me to take a vital, healthy organ out of my body to serve some kind of idea that you all have that's actually a bunch of bullshit. So for cultural reasons, I'm not going to do this, because sometimes it's like, they're like, oh, well, you just don't want it. I'm like, no, my ancestors don't want me to do this. And I feel like a lot of them will be very nervous about that. And I want to use that to my advantage. I'm going to bring up cultural stuff to use to my advantage, to make them uncomfortable, and get my point across. The other thing I want to say, I don't identify as a trans person. However, I want to say a lot of my friends who do identify as trans, who have wanted or have struggled and have eventually gotten gender affirming surgeries that were denied because of their size, that is transphobic. Like, Oregon Health Sciences University is a giant health organization here in Oregon and in Portland. And they're like, oh, we're really supportive of trans folks. And we have this trans program and advocates and all this stuff. And when I went and talked to them, I was like, do you deny trans people their affirming surgeries because of their size? And they were, well, we have, these standards, da, da, da. I was like, well, then you're transphobic. You're not actually providing a safe space for trans people, because we're not just one identity, right? So, I mean, you have to take into consideration identity and size and, people's other identities about being trans. So I just want to make those connections that fat people, disabled people, trans folks, non-binary folks, all with these, we don't have the same experiences, but we're having experiences in bodies that are often considered to be defective, deviant, disgusting, all of those kinds of words. And that is really the root of a lot of the problems that a lot of us face in getting these services. And I would also say, my last thing I want to say about doctors, and this is a current, this is just something I thought of the other day. So I haven't quite fully formed it, but I don't want to say this in a way, I don't want to stigmatize people. Some people, to deal with their issues, have struggles getting giving away or getting rid of objects, right? And then sometimes it fills their house, they fill their house with stuff, right? And I have a lot of compassion for folks who do that. I have a tendency of that myself. And so, but one of the things I think about is the sort of the thinking errors that are involved with that, of I can't give away this thing, or I can't change my mindset. It's a whole reframing. And I think about doctors that way. Doctors have those thinking errors too. They don't want to look at the research that shows that fat people who get surgeries actually have a really great outcome. There's a lot of research that shows that fat people do heal well. Fat people do have good health outcomes. A lot of the other research is very problematic, is created by and funded by the diet industry. There's all these problems, but a lot of these doctors don't want to see it, because of confirmation bias and other kinds of biases and other kinds of thinking errors. So they are they struggle with their mindset just as much as the rest of us. And unfortunately, because they are in positions of power, it is really impactful and hard for the rest of us to navigate. So my thing is, your body is yours. It's nobody else's business. I think doctors typically do well if we tell them, these are my expectations. This is what I want from my care from you. If you cannot provide this for me, you are not the person for me. I'm not going to date anybody. I'm also not going to have any friggin' doctor. You all deserve best. You deserve better. And those doctors, we need to find those people and uplift them that are doing the really good work. So I just want to say that to you. And if you need to top those motherfuckers, then do it. And you can do it quietly, and you can top from the bottom. I don't really care, but you deserve the best, and they need to get their shit together.
Thank you so much, Shilo, for that. Okay, so I know I don't have a lot of time for all the questions I want. I think the next question, and I'm going to go ahead and unmute Bambi because I had to accidentally mute them really quick. Okay, so the next question is, so this we address kind of like what doctors or medical staff might or might not do. That gives us like red flags or green flags. Is this person be compatible? Things we like to see. So in terms of either friends or family or strangers, what can folks do to make you feel comfortable around them, safe around them, feel seen? Whether that's, providing strong furniture or asking you certain questions or noticing or not noticing things, commenting on things. What kind of things do you like to see from friends or even just random people? I'll go ahead and let Bambi go first.
I'm sorry, you guys. My doctor just called, ironically, and I think it's just another point that proves self-advocacy, doing your own research, recording them, and making them write things down. Because yesterday, like I said, I went to the doctor and I told them about what's going on. And then last week, I went to the ER and had a very scary experience with not getting any help. But that's besides the point. So yesterday they told me they would write me a prescription for a specific medication because I needed it, and the APRN I saw says she believed I needed it, and I haven't seen my doctor because my doctor's out. Well, I guess there's a lot of communication between the nurses and the APRNs when the doctors are out. So now they're actively denying me the medicine again and telling me to go back to the ER where I had a horrible experience. So I think once again it's just another point of saying no, like you're not going to do something that's not going to work for you. It's just another point of not being strong but being strategic in the best way you can to survive.
Thank you so much, Bambi. Yeah, and our next question goes to like, what kind of things can friends or family or even strangers do to make you feel like they're an ally to someone with a queer body, whether that's their race or their abilities or anything like that? Yandi, we haven't heard from you in a minute.
For me, it's like, don't stare. I feel like that's a very like basic thing that I was taught in like kindergarten. I don't know. Don't stare at me. It doesn't happen so often with a mask. I'm always wearing a mask, usually. But I can't tell you how many times I've been at work and I'm like taking my mask off to take a drink of water and someone is just like, what? It's like, it's just a mustache. It's really not that big of a deal. And also, just to get more comfortable with using the word fat. I mean, let's get over it. It's 2022. People are fat. It's fine. It's fine. Like, let's just all collectively get better about that. And also, to me, whenever I don't know someone, I just use they, them until I know better. But also, if you are in a group with people and you keep saying she, but other people keep saying they specifically, internalize that and like understand what is happening there. Like, people are politely trying to tell you that you're fucking up, basically. Just listen to that. Be more aware. And just be more willing to listen to people and their experiences and meet people where they are.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wren, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sorry, I keep like turning my camera on and off. I like sometimes I can get a little like overstimulated with like all of my camera on, like looking at things. So I just kind of turn it off and like get myself into like just listen. Anywho's, for me, I definitely think my green flags when it comes to interacting with like friends, family, and strangers are some of them are similar to things that Yandi mentioned. Not necessarily like trying to make sure that you're not like gendering somebody you don't know. So using they them pronouns for somebody or their name if you don't know what their pronouns are. being okay with using the word fat is a big one for me. I think also for like specifically to relate to my circumstances, like I generally try to make sure that like somebody that I am in a community with like is I had it and I lost it. Oh God. Um, I guess specifically for strangers, more so than like friends and family, because I kind of tend to very kind of closely vet my personal circles and people that I let into my personal life, like friends and things like that. Um, but for strangers, I guess usually the bare minimum is just not staring at me. Especially as like a mobility aid user, I use a cane. I am also a ambulatory wheelchair user who is hoping to transition into like more so full-time wheelchair use once I'm able to like afford one. I'm also looking into getting a rollator as well, for like until I can get a wheelchair. They're both expensive. The rollator's cheaper, so I'm all for that. I guess my big thing is definitely just like Yandi said, not staring. Um, because that like the like being a like visibly disabled, like a mobility, like a disabled mobility aid user in public spaces, so much of it is like walking this fine line between being a spectacle for other people and also being invisible to these same people. Um, like constantly when I deal with taking public transit, especially when I'm out and my wife and I are out and I'm in my wheelchair, people will stare at me and try to like puzzle out what's wrong with me or why I'm in the wheelchair. And when I get on buses, people get annoyed with me and like I can hear them muttering and like talking shit under their breath because they don't understand why they have to wait to get on the bus because I have to go up the ramp and I have to get like position and they have to like hook me in. And a lot of times bus drivers will go out of their way to like make other passengers wait so I can get on the bus, which I know annoys a lot of people. But at the same time, people will, when I'm like with my cane, people will treat me like I'm not there. People will step on my cane. People will push me. People will step on me. Like people will act like I'm not there. And then it's like, hello, hello, like what's going on? And then the other main thing is that I expect from people, not just my personal life, but in general, is I'm very, very protective over my mobility aids and just like get really like enforcing the idea of consent in all things. But like specifically as it relates to my mobility aids, one of my biggest pet peeves about like interacting with people I don't know well is people trying to touch my mobility aids without me asking. So, like, if I'm trying to go somewhere in my wheelchair and having some random person I don't know try to grab my wheelchair to push me, or people leaning on my wheelchair like it's like something to lean on, or I've had a situation where I was out somewhere with my rollator and random strangers started trying to use my rollator as a coat rack. They were just trying to put their stuff on my rollator. Like, I use that to stand. What are you doing? And then like with my cane, people will like if I drop it, I only ever asked for help to pick it up if I really can't pick it up myself. But 9 times out of 10, if I drop it, I don't pick it up right away. It's on the floor for a reason. And so I've had people try to grab my cane. And one time I had an interaction with somebody on a train where I dropped my cane because I was like trying to like put my wallet in my pocket and like put my T-pass away so I could sit down. And I dropped my cane and it was like next to my feet. And I knew that when I went to sit down, I could pick it up. And this woman, she tried to grab my cane. And I tried to tell her, no, it's okay. I got it. And then she's like, no, I'll just grab it real quick. And so I literally had to step on my own cane so she could not pick it up. And then when she was like, oh, I was like, yeah, I got it. Thank you, though. And then she got mad and she like moved her seat. And I was like, hello? Like, hello? It's like people don't seem to understand that it's like you wouldn't walk up to a, like, obviously some people do still do this and like, that it is what it is, but like the most people, you wouldn't walk up to somebody and like grab their arm and start trying to like move it around for them, or like grab their legs and start trying to like move it around, or like grab a part of their fit, like their body, and like manipulate it for them. So it's kind of frustrating to me when people don't like extend that same like level of consent to disabled people, and also to fat people, because it's like, why is it different for you? Like, this is a part of my body, this is a part of my like my existence. Like, why does this same consent that you, the idea of consent that you have, not extend to all parts of my identity but only some of them? This is also a little bit off topic, but I wanted to go back to something that Shilo said about trans healthcare and how like being fat and being disabled can restrict that. One of the reasons why I personally am choosing not to get top surgery is because almost every single surgeon in my area has BMI requirements to get top surgery. And similar like BMI requirements, and like weight and size based barriers to accessing things like surgeries, and sometimes even things like just HRT can be blocked by things like your size, because the doctors will be like, oh, well, we're just worried because of XYZ thing, and we don't know how it could affect you because of your size. And it's like, you're just saying that because you want me to lose weight. It's okay, you can say that. Like, if you like, at this point, I'd rather you just say that it's because you think I need to lose weight, and stop trying to lie and be like, oh, well, we can't give you your testosterone because we're worried about how your weight will affect it. And it's like, all right, girl, pack it up.
Thanks so much, Wren. Okay, I think Shilo is our last person to give us, what are your green, is that what we're doing? Now I don't remember. Our green flags?
Yeah, I have some green flags and some red flags in a couple of different areas. I think a lot of the suggestions around like fat bodies are really good. I would just say also, like, if you're going to invite people over, just be really thoughtful about like, and I think also kind of fatness and disability is like making sure you have a sturdy chairs with no armrests. And sometimes a lot of couches are way too low for me to actually get out of for my disability. And some couches don't even have armrests. I literally don't know how people function in couches like that, but whatever. So having a chair is nice. It's not very, excuse me, very comfortable for my body to sit in the chair all the time, but what are you going to do? Letting folks know if you have stairs that they need to walk up. If you live on a hill, like my friend Ed, who was on here earlier, he lives on a really like steep hill, and so he actually made a video of like, you can go up the stairs, or there's like a path, and whatever we need to do to help you. But I just appreciated that he sent like a whole video, and so I knew exactly what to expect and was able to navigate it really well. He was really sweet. I think if you're someone who works for an agency or a company, a lot of people like to, and they'll do this for like, people do this for like powwows and all kinds of stuff, events. They want to have t-shirts and stuff made. Like, you need to have your stuff go up to like a 10x at least. And a lot of companies don't make over a 3 or 4 maybe. And when they do, it's like really, like if it's a 5x, it's probably a 3x in like reality. So maybe not do stuff like that, or have alternatives of other ways to commemorate that event. I cannot tell you how many t-shirts I have that I never can use because I literally can't fit into them. And it's annoying. I think the other thing, especially around like, if you're walking around with someone, like, don't walk faster than them. I have, when I was able to walk further, I would have friends who would end up walking ahead of me, and it was really annoying because they weren't paying attention. Also, like, if you're like, oh, it's just a couple blocks, but it's 10 blocks, that's a problem. So be very clear about how many blocks it is, because that person may not be able to walk that distance comfortably. And we don't want to, and the thing is with people with disabilities is I might have the ability to walk 2 blocks, but that day I might not be able to walk 5 more. Right. So you don't know what that is. I know what my ability is that day, but I need to know clearly. And don't make assumptions about what people can walk or not walk, just ask them. And then I think, one of the things about that we often talk about, like, and Wren, you were sort of speaking about this, is like this like hyper visibility and hyper invisibility, and how I've come to kind of understand that is my personhood and humanity is very invisible, but my fatness or disability or queerness or whatever it is that is really visible to that person is hyper visible to them because of what that means to them, not what it means to me and whatever crap they're projecting onto me. So I think, and that includes race as well, right? Any of those isms, so our personhood, our humanity is away, is gone, and whatever they're projecting, like I often feel like a garbage can of people's projections onto me, and it's really annoying. And I don't think people realize that they're doing it. I think the other thing around being Native, I would really appreciate it if people would not ask me about like a random tribe. Like sometimes I know information, but most of the time I don't. I'm not a walking encyclopedia of every single tribe and indigenous nation on Turtle Island or further. And asking cultural questions without really knowing people is really like personal. Also, don't ask about people's percentage that they're Native or blood quantum is incredibly disrespectful and super racist. So don't ask that stuff. Just kind of when I see a space that if I were to see like a dream catcher that's like clearly like not a traditional one, that's something that flags to me, like what is going on here. So just being careful about like words you're using, do your own homework, there's a lot more tips I could give you, but those are the ones that came to my mind.
Thank you so much. And I recognize it's 5 p.m., but I don't want to just cut up all of our panelists. So I'm going to go around, starting with Yandi, then going to Bambi, then Wren, and back to Shilo to just ask for if there's anything else you want to add for our folks watching to know, whether it's projects you're working on, facts, just reminders, whatever it is, just take a few seconds to tell folks. So Yandi, would you like to start?
Can I actually start because I need to go. I have a meeting.
Yes, Shilo, go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to say thank you for everyone who showed up, and you can get a hold of me on Facebook or Instagram. I'll put my email address in here before I leave. I do a lot of training around this topic and many other topics. If you want training or consulting or anything like that. And I do have a podcast coming out with my friend Brianna this month called Your Two Spirit Aunties Podcast, where we're going to really talk about Indigenous issues from our perspectives as Two Spirit Aunties, and talk about healing things, but also difficult things, and also like being like products and things we love about people that are making things in our community. So you can find it on any, it should be out this month. You can find it on any of the places you listen to podcasts. And yeah, so I don't know. Just appreciate you all. Thanks to the other panelists. You guys are amazing. And, you all are amazing. And yeah, I hope you have a good day. Sorry, I have to leave quickly. To meet with some folks. So just, I love you a lot. Take care of yourselves, do what you need to do, reach out and love other folks in your communities and spaces. And let's be really good to each other because shit's really hard. So thank you.
Thank you, Shilo. Yandi, would you like to go next? Last thoughts?
I'm really happy that I was able to do this. I learned a lot from everybody. it was really fun. I had a good time. If you want, you can follow me on Instagram. I'll put it in the little chat. I'm trying to reach 1 million followers because I am Internet Barbie and I have to get there this year. That is my goal. So help me reach it. Thank you very much. But no, I
Oh, you got unmuted, Yandi.
Oh, I fixed it. I had a lot of fun. I thought that we talked about a lot of really important things. Everyone brought up a lot of really good information, things that I hadn't even considered or thought of. And I'm just happy to be able to share this space with all of you. And thank you so much, Bella, for letting me do this with all of you. It's been very fun.
Oh,
Thanks so much, Yandi. All right, Bambi, last thoughts.
I just wanted to say again, even though I know I was late and I had to jump off a couple of times, that this experience was really exciting for me, even though I didn't get to participate as much as I want to, because I'm having a hard time being attentive because of things going on. But it was really, really nice to have this opportunity, and I hope things are remembered from here and things are taken into consideration from not only the things I said, but the things the other panelists said. And I hope that in the future there can be something like this again, specifically for these communities.
Thanks so much, Bambi. And then finally, Wren, final thoughts.
Okay, first thing, just want to echo what everyone else was saying. Thank you so much. I'm very honored to have been able to share space with you all and to learn so much and to hear all of your thoughts and perspectives. It's been really very healing for me to be in a space like this. Okay, sorry. If you want to follow me, I do have an Instagram account. I can put it in the chat as well, but it's at stemmonade, STEMMONADE. I predominantly use my Instagram account to help with mutual aid and community care work for Black and other like BIPOC, like visibly marginalized folks. So if you want to follow me on there and help me with that work by like helping to like circulate the posts that I share and things like that, I really appreciate it. I also have a Twitter where I do kind of the same thing, but less often because Twitter's a lot. I did put my little pay linkies in the chatty chat. It's scrolled up there somewhere. I do, as I mentioned before, I am unemployed. I can't work due to my disabilities and my wife can't either. So we kind of rely on mutual aid and community care to cover basic survival. So any little pocket change I can spare, I appreciate it. Also I am available to like do things like panels or like do like trainings and workshops and stuff like that. Are centered specifically around like disability and transness, queerness, things like that. I have on my Instagram, I think I have oh no, I don't have the email button anymore, but I can put it back on. You can message me on Instagram if you want, if you have any opportunities for like gigs like that, please hit me up. I need gigs. I can't work a regular job anymore. And doing stuff like this is like one of the only things I can do for work. So if folks watching this have gigs similar to this vein that they are looking for people for, please hit me up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wren. Thank you again to all of our panelists. And I will, everything they send me, whether it's Facebook message, email, whatever, their Cash Apps, their links, we'll make sure to put on Gulf Pride social media in a post and story so that folks can access it. And yeah, just reminding folks that even the most privileged among the folks of like in this panel, because we have all those identities of like queerness, BIPOC, disabilities, fatness, like neurodivergence, all of those things, the most privileged of us are struggling. So imagine the least privileged of us. Spare anything you can, and I hope to have any and all of you back for future events. Thanks so much for everyone attending, and see you. Thanks. Yay. Thank you. Check out Gulf Pride events later. Boo, 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 boo. Yes. No, don't report. Okay. Anyways, hi Eli and also Gracie. I'm sweaty.
I had to respond to an email. Did you mention intergenerational pride chats?
No, also I have to stop recording. Hold on.